There's a new budget CPU that's made its way into some cheaper gaming laptops. But there's a catch. It doesn't have any integrated graphics, which means battery life is probably going to suck. It's AMD's Ryzen 7 7435HS processor, and I bought it in this Lenovo LOQ with RTX 4060 graphics to find out if it's worth buying. Alright, first we need to understand what AMD has done to the 7435HS. It's very similar to the popular 7735HS, which is just a rename of the 6800H from early 2022. They all have the same amount of cores, threads, and cache, but the 7435HS has slightly lower base and boost clock speeds, and it's completely missing the integrated graphics. They're all based on AMD Zen 3 Plus architecture, so technically the 7435HS is not new. With Zen 5 launching any day now, technically this architecture is 2 generations old, but we're only just now starting to see it pop up in cheaper gaming laptops like this one. So why would AMD make a laptop processor without integrated graphics? Well, the 7435HS chips were likely originally intended to be a higher SKU like the 7735HS. But as it turns out, teaching sand how to think is a tricky process. There are failure rates when it comes to making CPUs. AMD must have ended up with a bunch of chips that had defective GPUs, but rather than scrapping them and turning them into waste, they've found their way into cheaper gaming laptops. No integrated graphics means that everything is going to run on the more powerful NVIDIA discrete graphics, which in my case here is the RTX 4060. So even with the laptop just sitting here right now doing absolutely nothing, it's burning more battery than it otherwise would with integrated graphics. So let's find out what this means for battery life. Sure enough, battery life isn't that great, lasting for just 3 hours and 24 minutes in our YouTube video playback test. But at the same time, other LOQ laptops that we've tested that do have integrated graphics only lasted for 48 minutes more, which isn't really a huge difference, though some lasted longer than others. Those other LOQs all have Intel processors. Based on our other Ryzen results that do have integrated graphics, battery life is usually quite good, so a LOQ with AMD processor and integrated graphics would likely do better than our Intel results. The whole point of a laptop is to be mobile and have portability, so the 7435HS kinda defeats that purpose by not having integrated graphics and giving us poor battery life. But here's the thing, companies making these laptops know this, so in many cases they're selling them at lower prices in order to compensate for that, hoping that you'll buy a laptop with one of these chips. So let's see how the 7435HS actually performs. Multi-core performance is basically the same as the 7735HS in ASUS's TUF A15 or the 6800H in Lenovo's Legion 5 from a couple of years ago, which makes sense. They're basically the same chip as discussed. Although the 7435HS only recently started appearing in gaming laptops, at the end of the day, the chip offers performance from early 2022. The newer Zen 4 chips that came out in 2023 score 18 to 25% higher in multi-core, but laptops with these chips usually cost more money. Performance doesn't lower too much if we unplug the charger and run off of battery power, though you won't be doing that for as long without integrated graphics. It's still basically the same as the 7735HS and 6800H, and the Zen 4 chips are still ahead by a similar margin as before. So CPU performance is exactly where expected. It's okay, but not super impressive compared to what newer processors offer. But how does it affect gaming? We've tested the LOQ in 3 games with these settings at 1080p and 1440p to find out. Cyberpunk 2077 was tested with our own custom test run, and I've got the LOQ shown by the red highlight. It's not actually all that different compared to the 2023 LOQs that we tested with RTX 4060 graphics, despite those having newer Intel processors. The processor matters less at higher resolutions like 1440p, as the GPU starts to stretch its legs. The Legion laptops with Zen 4 processors were actually slightly behind now, but honestly, the difference between most of our RTX 4060 results are close together and within the margin of error range. It's only a small difference that you wouldn't actually notice when playing. Red Dead Redemption 2 was tested with the game's benchmark tool. At 1080p, our cheaper lock with 7435HS is close to the 2023 models with the same GPU but newer Intel CPUs. Those Legion laptops with newer Zen 4 processors are ahead. But again, this is margin of error stuff that you're not going to notice. The 4060 results are even closer together at the higher 1440p resolution, with some of the higher tier 4070s in thinner laptops not doing too well in this game. The 7435HS lock was doing great in control at 1080p. It's one of our highest RTX 4060 results, at least in terms of average FPS. The laptops with newer Zen 4 processors all have higher 1% lows, so they're just a bit more stable with smoother gameplay, which is honestly preferable given the average FPS is already near 100 without upscaling. The CPU matters less at 1440p, and ultimately, the performance from the 7435HS laptop is perfectly fine in this game. Even the 1% low is matching one of our more expensive Zen 4 laptops. This laptop does not have a MUX Switch, but that's only because it doesn't need it. There's no integrated graphics to swap away from. The display always connects directly to the NVIDIA graphics, no matter what, as that's the only option, so game performance is always going to be optimal by default. There's no integrated graphics acting as a bottleneck. That said, the total system latency wasn't that impressive. This measures the amount of time between a mouse click and when a gunshot fire appears on the screen in Counter-Strike 2. It's nowhere near as bad as Gigabyte's cheaper G6X, despite that having a newer CPU, or Lenovo's lock with Intel's worse, but cheaper A530M graphics. But there are other 4060 laptops with newer Zen 4 processors and faster screens that are a bit more responsive. Surprisingly, the 1080p screen mine came with has G-Sync, but it's not very bright, topping out at just 282 nits at full brightness, below the 300 nit baseline that I want to see. This makes it one of the dimmest screens we've tested. However, the lock we tested 7 months earlier had the same panel and was a little brighter, so there is some variance between panels. Color gamut was fine for gaming. The only downside of the screen is the brightness. It's a little dim, but that can be less of an issue if you're playing inside and can reduce ambient lighting. My lock's screen response time isn't great. For a 144Hz panel, we want transitions to occur within the 6.94 millisecond refresh window, and all of them are slower than this. Still, it's faster compared to a number of other gaming laptops in the budget category, but depending on how sensitive you are, you might notice a little blurriness in fast-paced games. I can't say I did though. Alright, but how hot does a laptop with the 7435HS get? Well, it depends on the performance mode you're using. As usual, the lock has 4 different performance modes, which from lowest to highest are quiet, balance, performance, and custom mode. Custom mode lets you customize the fan speed or set them to maximum, customize temperature and power limits, or just set extreme mode to let it work out what's best for you. The lock runs quite cool, with low temps and quiet fans at idle. The rest of the results are from combined CPU and GPU stress tests, which aim to represent a worst-case full-load scenario. But temperatures are what I'd consider to be ice cold in a laptop in this workload. There's no problem at all. Custom mode was a little warmer than performance mode, and we're able to lower the temperatures 2 to 3 degrees Celsius with the cooling pad. Link to that can be found below. Temperatures don't really change with the lid closed, so no problems with docking the laptop. Clock speeds don't really change in custom mode with the fans maxed out, or extreme mode in use, or with the cooling pad or lid closed, because thermals are nowhere near close to being a limit. The CPU is able to run with 45 watts of power while the GPU runs at around 95 watts. Technically, the NVIDIA control panel says that the GPU power limit of this laptop goes up to 115 watts with dynamic boost, but in practice, 95 watts is the real limit due to NVIDIA's voltage limit. Unfortunately, there was some battery drain during testing, but only in custom mode where it's pumping the most power into the CPU and GPU. The 170 watt charger can only provide so much power, but I only saw a 1% dip to battery charge every 10 to 15 minutes or so. And the fact is, many games won't max out both the CPU and GPU fully like this, so your mileage will vary. CPU performance wasn't really that different in the lower performance modes, and neither was game performance, so you could probably avoid battery drain in a lower mode without much FPS loss. Here are the 3D Mark results, and the content creator results look lower than most of the others that we've tested, but unfortunately, we just don't have too many results as older data gets cleared out when we swap to newer newer software versions. Wi-Fi performance is the lowest we've measured so far on our new router setup. But at the end of the day, this isn't that far off from gigabit speeds, so it's probably fine for most people. Many people on Reddit and in the comments of my own videos have asked about the motherboards on LOQ laptops dying. So I asked Lenovo about it, and as of today on July 23rd, they said based on the service requests they've received, there hasn't been an increase in issues with the LOQ compared to their other products. But they're keeping an eye on the situation, so if you have had any problems, then contact their support team. The unfortunate fact is laptops from any brand can just randomly die one day. Whether we're talking Lenovo, Acer, Asus, Dell, MSI, Alienware, Razer, everyone. All hardware has failure rates, but they're usually very low, and that's why things like warranty exist. Is the issue with the LOQ actually widespread? Honestly, I've got no idea outside of the people that have reported it. If it's something that you're concerned about, you can get other laptops with the Ryzen 7 7435HS processor, like Asus's TUF A15, which should also be available as a cheaper option. Which leads me to my next point. How much does this thing cost, and is it worth buying? Prices will of course change over time, so check the link below the video for updates and current sales. And if the LOQ has a good sale, we'll be sure to add it to our gaminglaptop.deals website. We update that every day to include all of the latest sales. So make sure that you check it out regularly to save money on your next gaming laptop with that link below. At the time of recording in late July, the LOQ is on sale at Best Buy for $800 US. Honestly, that's not too bad for an RTX 4060 gaming laptop right now. But our deal site has Dell's G15 with newer Zen 4 processor and a higher refresh rate screen for $35 less, which is just a better deal. Not to mention it has integrated graphics. Based on that, I think it would be nice if the LOQ with 7435HS went down to $750 or so, because we've had other 4060 laptops that do have integrated graphics at around that $800 price point before. Ultimately, we want to see laptops with the 7435HS priced lower than those with integrated graphics in order to justify the battery life compromise. Otherwise, there's just no point buying one of these laptops over one that has integrated graphics. As the 7435HS is basically a 7735HS just without integrated graphics, CPU performance is much the same, and performance in games was often just as good as other laptops with the same GPU but with newer processors. It really comes down to how important battery life is for you. Lower battery life might not be the end of the world if you're someone that only uses the laptop with the charger connected. In that case, maybe you don't care and you're happy to get the discount. So if a laptop with the 7435HS is cheaper and you're primarily gaming with the charger connected, then sure, go for it. But for most people who probably care more about battery life, you would want to avoid this CPU. Pretty much everything else about Lenovo's LOQ laptop, from build quality to the screen to the keyboard, touchpad, and ports, is all the same as the original review that I did earlier this year. So check that one out next if you want any further details about Lenovo's LOQ.